Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day 479. 479! Oh my goodness. It is Monday, July the 2nd, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty, well I'm glad we got that political stuff out of the way yesterday. Hopefully I didn't, I think I rambled on too long a little bit, but sorry if I bored you to death on that, but hopefully you got the point. And I try to limit the amount of party politics that I talk about. Not a whole lot going on the last couple days in terms of Spygate and everything, so I kind of thought it would be a good opportunity to jump in there and get that done. But we're going to move on and get back to the hardcore stuff, right? The stuff we really care about. Okay, so obviously you guys know that I'm really focused on the 6-agency task force. Just so you know, any of you that are curious about this or interested in this and you're finding yourself wanting to go out there and look into it yourself, what you're going to find if you just type into your search engine, just type in 6-agency task force, what you will find is about 10 or 15 pages of a whole lot of stories about the 6-agency task force, and they all were written beginning on May the 17th of 2017, running through about 2 weeks. And these were all left-wing organizations writing these stories. The New York Times, the Washington Post, McClatchy, Vox, Vanity Fair, you name it. And the reason that they were all jumping all over this story, and keep in mind, that's the day that Mueller, May 17th, 2017, was the day Uncle Bob the Executioner was appointed special counsel. Don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but or if they're related, but I know on May 17th, 2017 is the day that the first stories were written about this 6-agency task force. And the reason all these liberal outlets were writing the story is because obviously someone leaked something to them. And once the New York Times or whoever wrote the first story wrote the story, everyone else on the left-wing media, jumped on the story and they wrote their own stories about it. So what you'll find is if you look into that, and you'll see all those stories dating back to that May 17, 2017 time period for about 2 weeks where all those stories appear. The gist of the story at that time was, and the reason all the lefties were writing about it, was because it had broken that the 6-agency task force existed, that John Brennan created it, because he apparently was told from intelligence in the Baltic states that Estonian intelligence agencies had intercepted a phone call that alleged that Russians were putting a lot of money into the Trump campaign. This apparently is what Brennan said is the reason he started the 6-agency task force. And then, so then all these left-wing outlets start writing the story that the 6-agency task force is right on the trails of Trump, and they're about, that within days, they're going to discover the smoking gun of the Trump-Russia collusion and this type of thing. So that's why that story was all the rave, and that's when we first started hearing about the 6-agency task force. Now, obviously, about 2 weeks goes by, nothing happens, and the story just fades away, and no one talks about it anymore. So if you go into Google and you just Google that or any other search engine that you use, that's what you'll find. A lot of stories back from that 2-week period right around the middle of May to the end of May of 2017. But if you narrow your search results to just the past stories in the past 24 hours or the last 5 days or even the last 30 days, you will find very, very little about the 6-agency task force. You'll see my video there. You'll see some Twitter links there where people mention it on Twitter. There's something there from the Last Refuge. But it's very, very spotty and maybe only a page or two. And then you run out of things to look at. So not a whole lot going on there. But that is really the origins of it. Now, so I have to go back, and I've been reading a lot of these stories. There's like 10 or 15 pages in the search engines about it from all different sources. Okay, so I've been looking through all that. Not that I'm interested in the story they were telling back then, the Boris and Natasha routine, because I see something completely different in the 6-agency task force that I'm looking at. But there's information in there that, that could be, helpful to me for what I'm doing, looking at the 6-agency task force. So I found something, and I stumbled onto something yesterday. And, of course, we know that the 6-agency task force included the FBI and the DOJ. Now, we've talked a lot in the past, not so much recently, but back earlier in the year, we were talking a lot about the DOJ NSD. This is the National Security Division of the Department of Justice, where Bruce Orr was the number 2 man. And it was also, we were talking about it because we learned that a lot of this secret stuff that was going on was being moved into the NSD DOJ, where Bruce Orr was. And then we learned Horowitz, during his investigation, wanted to look into the DOJ NSD, and Sally Yates, the acting attorney general at that time, wrote him a 50-page letter saying, no, you're not allowed, Mr. Horowitz, to look into the NSD, the DOJ NSD. That's off limits. So she barred Horowitz from being able to look into that. Now, I believe that's been overturned, and I believe he has been able to get access to the DOJ NSD. But as I was looking into the 6-agency task force and reading some things yesterday, I discovered that the FBI group that was involved in the 6-agency task force was actually from the FBI NSB. FBI NSB. Not just the normal FBI, but the FBI NSB. What is the FBI NSB? It is the FBI's National Security Branch. What is the National Security Branch of the FBI? And who's in charge? So, I looked into that, and here's what I have learned. The FBI National Security Branch is there to protect from weapons of mass destruction, terrorism, foreign intelligence operations, and espionage. And it is headed by an FBI Executive Assistant Director who answers directly to the Director of the FBI through the Deputy Director of the FBI. The FBI NSB is under the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and is ultimately responsible to the Attorney General. It also falls within the overview of the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence. It was created in 2005 during the Bush administration. The FBI NSB combines resources, capabilities, and resources and capabilities of the FBI's counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and intelligence elements under the leadership of a senior FBI official. Since February of 2017, that man has been Carl Gaddis, Ghattas, C-A-R-L, Carl, Ghattas, Carl Gaddis, who was appointed by Comey in February of 2017. Now, keep in mind that the FBI counterintelligence of the FBI falls under the division. It's within the division of the National Security Branch. In other words, Peter's been stroking us as number 2 man at counterintelligence, and Bill Priestap, the number 1 man at counterintelligence, would have answered directly to the head of the National Security Branch, would have been Mr. Gaddis from February 2017 until the current. Gaddis was appointed by Comey on February 28, 2017. Gaddis was formerly the Assistant Director for Counterintelligence Division at FBI headquarters. And when did we hear the name Mr. Gaddis pop up a lot? Well, it was back at the time when everybody was talking about Susan Rice and the unmasking. If you remember, Susan Rice went on TV, said she didn't know anything about unmasking, and then she went on another network, I think PBS, after it had already been evidence had come out that she in fact was involved in unmasking, and she was forced to admit that she was unmasking, at which point she changed her tune and said, yeah, well, we unmasked, but it wasn't political. Then everybody was looking into Susan Rice, and the Congress wanted to interview her and interview people who would know anything about that. And it was at that time that the name Carl Gaddis first came up. Gaddis was in fact questioned by the Senate Intelligence Committee. Of course, we know that they suck. We know that they're part of the deep state. We know that they're defenders of the deep state. Gatekeepers. Not the good guys. The good guys are the House Intelligence Committee, where Devin Nunes is. But the Senate Intelligence Committee, they're the black hats. And they are the ones who interviewed Gaddis. Now, I don't know if the House Intelligence Committee interviewed Gaddis, or if the Oversight Committee or Judicial Committee interviewed Gaddis. I just know that it's confirmed that he was interviewed by the Senate Intelligence Committee, which would tell us nothing. They would only cover for him. So, it's very interesting that this six-agency task force didn't just use the regular FBI. They used the FBI NSB, National Security Branch. And Peter Benstrokinus, as number 2 at counterintelligence, along with Priestap, number 1 at counterintelligence, would have fallen under the purview, under the heading of NSB. The NSB is kind of the parent of counterintelligence, regular counterintelligence in the FBI. So, again, it gets a little bit murky with all these various agencies and how they overlap and who they answer to and who they're part of and who they associate with and all these other things. But it's just very interesting that it wasn't the normal FBI, it was the FBI National Security Branch that was part of the six-agency task force, which is how you would get Peter Benstrokinus. And of course we know that Comey knew all about it, and McCabe would have known about it, because as we just learned, the National Security Branch of the FBI answers directly to the director through the deputy director. So, now I want to move on. So anyway, that's what we have on the six-agency task force for today, as we continue to learn and uncover more and more about that. So now I want to move on to a different thing, which is this entire investigation, as I was talking about a couple of videos ago. It's so important that we get the context right. It's really important that members of Congress who are interviewing, talking to witnesses, and who are out making the case, and they've done a decent job, and there's been people on Fox and other people, YouTubers and others, who are doing a pretty good job of making the clear distinction of exactly what we're talking about here. We are not talking about the Trump-Russia investigation and what was done in the Trump-Russia investigation, because what was done in the Trump-Russia investigation is being investigated supposedly by Uncle Bob the Executioner. And what would have been okay to do, such as planning informants and doing other things, well, that would have been okay in a counterintelligence operation trying to find out if the Russians were hacking the election. But if what we're looking into is actually, was there abuse of power by the government, by these intelligence agencies, by the Obama administration, using these intelligence agencies combined to run a frame-up operation, and that these informants were not looking into Russians, but were rather trying to run setups and frame-ups and set traps for Trump people, that would be a completely different thing. It would totally change the context and would also change what you would be allowed to look at evidence-wise, which is what Rodenstein is hiding behind. Rodenstein is saying, well, this was a counterintelligence operation, this is top secret stuff, you can't know about it unless you give me a good reason. Well, if the reason is, yeah, we want to just see what was going on with the Russia investigation, you will not find what Rodenstein needs. You'll give him the opportunity to hide behind the bureaucracy and classified information. But if you make it perfectly clear, no, Mr. Rodenstein, we're not looking at the Trump-Russia, Russia involved in the election. No, that's not what we're looking at. That's Uncle Bob the Executioner. That's you. That's other people. We're looking into possible abuse of power by the Obama administration and whether or not the intelligence agencies were trying to run a frame-up operation. Now, when you put it in that context, these questions and these documents now become relevant. That's why it's important that they be perfectly clear about what it is they are really investigating. Just come right out and say it. We're investigating whether or not there was abuse of power by the Obama administration, misuse of the intelligence agencies, using them to frame a presidential candidate and then later a president. That is the name of the investigation. And based on that, and in that context, the documents and the witnesses that you will be requesting would be valid. So we started out this thing, if you remember, I started doing my TowerGate videos when Trump tweeted out that he just learned someone had been tapping his wires. So as you know, for those of you who've heard this story 1,000 times, I heard that, like a lot of you did, and I thought about it for 2 days. I had already been doing some videos for about a year or a year and a half, but mostly on foreign policy and history and things and such. None of this stuff was happening. But once that happened, I thought about it for 2 days, and I said, wait a minute. Trump just tweeted out that someone, the Obama administration, was tapping his wires. He's not crazy, and he knows that you don't tweet something like that unless you got some proof. You can't accuse the previous administration of spying on you if you don't have some proof. Otherwise, you're just going to get beat to death in the press, and you probably should. So I thought, there's no way he would tweet that out. Somebody has told him something. He has learned something. And if this is true, this is going to be huge, bigger than Watergate. So I started doing my videos, following this story every day. And for the longest time, as we all know, they denied everything. They did surveillance, Trump being spied on. He's crazy. He's crazy, accusing the Obama administration of spying on him. Oh, he's crazy that there were informants in the campaign. Oh, he's crazy that there were people being set up. Oh, he's crazy, about all these things he's saying. But all the things that they said were crazy and were, just lies or just propaganda or just stuff that me and a bunch of other people were making up on YouTube videos, or people around Trump were talking about that we were all crazy and there was nothing to it all. It was just a bunch of crazy stuff or whatever. Now, look where we are a year and a half later. Now we've learned that every bit of that stuff we learned and much more has been proven to be true. True. So now where are we? Where are they? So now they can no longer deny that there was surveillance on the Trump campaign. They admit now that there was surveillance on the Trump campaign. Informants. First of all, that was crazy. Now they have to admit there were informants. All the things that we were told about a year ago that we were saying that were crazy have now been proven to be true. So we have to ask the following questions. Why did they do it? We know they did it. For the longest time they said they didn't do it. But now we know they did it. So now the only question is why? Did they do it because they had solid evidence that there may be Trump officials working with the Russians? Or was it political? If there was evidence, what was that evidence to begin an investigation into Trump associates or Trump being involved somehow in a plot with the Russians? We haven't seen it. We haven't seen the evidence. So first we were told it was all crazy talk a year ago, and then we were all nuts. But now that we've been proven to be correct, and that we weren't nuts, and that Trump wasn't nuts, and all the stuff that we were talking about a year ago has now been proven to be true, the only question is, why did they do it? They're saying, oh, it wasn't political. We had real reason to believe that the Russians were, and people involved with the Trump campaign, were doing all this stuff. But Devin Nunes and Gowdy and Goodlatte and me and you and everyone else we know, we're digging for the evidence. Where is it? Papadopoulos having a drink with Alexander Downer? And Papadopoulos says that he was told by Mr. Mifsud that the Russians have some dirt on Hillary, which suddenly found its way into the FBI via the State Department, via British intelligence through the American Embassy in London. And then all of a sudden it's about Hillary emails, when Papadopoulos himself and Downer himself both admit that that term never was used. Downer says he didn't say anything about Hillary Clinton emails. He said they had some, damaging material. Damaging material, not emails. Yet we've seen no evidence. They keep telling us there's evidence, but Rodenstein won't show it to us. Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray will not show it to us. Apparently Sessions doesn't have it. Who's got it? Senate Intelligence Committee? They apparently don't have it. Christopher Steele? Where is it? He's over in the depositions over there in England saying he can't verify any of it was true. And he told him that when he gave it to him. They have not produced the evidence. They have not. So if they cannot produce the evidence that would have led to a legitimate official investigation into what may have happened or what was going on, where is it? It doesn't appear to exist. Because there was none. Because it was political. It was a frame-up. It took us a year to go from the point where they were saying, no, you people are crazy. There was no surveillance. There was no informants. There was nothing like that going on. But now we know it's all true. It did happen. So now the only question that we're down to is, was it political or was it legitimate? And is there evidence to support the actions taken by the FBI or Brennan or anyone else? And so far, they have not been able to produce it. So, that's why I say, in 6 months to a year from now, it's all going to come out. There was no evidence. It was all political. It was a frame-up. That's why I'm telling you, it's all coming out. A year ago, when everybody was questioning all this, I said, hey, we're going to find out. There was informants and there was surveillance. Now we know. And I'm telling you that 6 months to a year from now, we're going to find out that, yes, it was all political. There was no evidence, nothing that you could ever use to go to court and say, here's the evidence to launch this investigation. There simply wasn't enough evidence. Everything they had was unverified because it was all being manufactured by them, using their boy, Christopher Steele, and using the State Department as the vehicle to move it from the intelligence agencies into the FBI so that they could then launch the counterintelligence operation. Unverified material. This is what we're going to learn. This is why we have to be patient. And yes, I do believe that the Rotten Reverend Clinton is going to be indicted, along with many other people. They're not going to roll over and go down easy. They're going to make it hard. We're going to have to fight for every bit of information that we get. They're going to have to fight for every document. They're going to have to fight for every witness. And at some point, and I don't know when that'll be or how that will happen, but at some point, there will have to be presidential commission, special counsel, whatever. This is way too big for the Inspector General to look at, and the Inspector General is a part of the DOJ, as are all the people that work for him. This has to be done. This has to be undertaken by people independent of the FBI and the DOJ. That's the only way that the truth is going to come out. We'll get there. So, keep the faith, because I'm telling you, it's all coming out. It just takes time. It took 2 years and 10 months for Watergate, and that was easy. That was just a simple burglary and a simple cover-up. Still took 2 years and 10 months for that to come out. This is much bigger, much more involved. Involves foreign intelligence agencies, involves secret intelligence agency formations, involves all kinds of crazy stuff. Multiple agencies spanned across the Obama administration. State Department, IRS, FBI, DOB, the DOJ, the DOJ NSD. The Defense Department. That's who was paying Mr. Halper. He was being paid by a unit within the DOD, which is done a lot of times by the intelligence agencies. They give their operatives cover by giving them a salary and a position as working for some agency, usually someone like the DOD or something like that. something other than the CIA. That's kind of their cover. And that's how they have to pay them. So they use another agency to do it so that they don't reveal that they're CIA. And who are they trying to hide that from? What, the adversary? No. They're trying to hide it from the Congress and you and me. That's why they do it. They're a clandestine organization. That's how they do things. Multiple layers of smoke and mirrors. And when you get into, trying to unravel the FBI plot is one thing. When it goes into the intelligence agencies, then it gets really, really tough. And we're going to find that to be true, just as Devin Nunes is finding right now. Once you start trying to get into the intelligence agencies, they don't keep records a lot of the times on what they do. They don't talk about what they do. And people who do talk about it, who are involved in it, they get taken care of, silenced, kneecapped. So, long way to go. Stay patient, stay focused. We're going to get there. It's too big a story, too many people working on it, too many people want the truth, too many people are now personally involved. They have a personal stake in it, and it's all coming out. They can fight it, they can drag it out, they can make it last 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, but I'm telling you, my friends, it's all coming out. So hang in there. Now, we have good news for especially people in South Carolina, but for all of us, really. We have learned that Katie Arrington is now in recovery, and she appears to be doing very well. And I certainly hope that she has a full and complete recovery as soon as possible. She appears to be doing pretty well. And in other words, what I mean is she's doing well enough that I think that she is going to be able to stand for her election in the fall and hopefully be victorious. So we're pulling for Katie Arrington. We're hoping she continues to do better every day. She's doing pretty well, as I understand, in her recovery. And hopefully she will be out of the hospital in the not-too-distant future. And it won't be long until she can get out there and go back to work, campaigning for that seat in South Carolina, because we need her badly. And just based on what I've learned about her, I think she's very solid. Very solid. Next, we have that idiot, Michael Moore, who wants to have a 1 million man march or gathering or something at the White House to try to stop Trump from nominating a good justice. It's not going to work. You can put 100 million people out there around the White House. I don't care. None of them have any votes. The only people that have any votes are the Senate, Mr. Moore. And they're all in a political year. What are they going to do? Vote against Trump's pick? There'll be 2 or 3 Democrats who will vote for Trump's Supreme Court pick. Mr. Moore, you fat pig. There's, the fact that they think that they can, first of all, he'll never get 1 million people there. Okay, there isn't room, not with him there. He'll be lucky to get 100,000. He'll be lucky to get 100,000 people there. Certainly nowhere near 1 million. And it doesn't matter. He could get 10 million. It doesn't matter. It's not going to stop anything. It's too close to the election. Too many Republicans are too nervous. They know how fired up, how popular Trump is, how fired up his base is. If you're a Republican and you vote against his judge, you're done. Now, of course, we can expect Corker and McCain. McCain might be dead by then, or probably would not be in position to vote. Corker will probably vote against him. That's okay, because we're going to get 2 or 3 Democrats. And I hear a lot of people say, well, there's all sorts of tactics that the Democrats can use. Yeah, there's all sorts of tactics they can use, but there's all sorts of tactics that McConnell can use too. He's the leader of the Senate. Oh, he has a few tactics of his own. Did you know that McConnell can open up the Senate for business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? He can force the Democrats to stay there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he can call for the vote anytime he wants. Go ahead and push him. Watch and see what happens. You think those Democrats want to bring cots and sleeping bags and camp out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a couple of weeks until McConnell decides one day, okay, we're going to have the vote. Boom. Go ahead. There's no parliamentary tactics that they can use that McConnell can't combat with his own parliamentary tactics. He runs the Senate. And we all remember when Harry Reid changed the rule. from 60 votes to 50 votes. A simple majority. And McConnell said to him, when he did that, you're going to regret that, and sooner than you think. Man, I'm telling you right now, McConnell, as much as I don't like McConnell, he's loaded for bear on this one. Believe me, this is personal. McConnell's going to have that damn vote, one way or another, and he is going to get his 50 votes. Trust me. Whether he has to pull a couple Democrats or what he has to do, he got 3 of them before. He'll probably get 2 or 3 of them this time. McCain will probably be dead or not able to vote. Corker probably, I don't know what Corker will do. He's obviously leaving the Senate, so he doesn't care. But we'll see. There'll be a lot of pressure, but I think that they'll get that done. I really do. And there's nothing Michael Moore or the Hollywood idiots can do to stop it. Nothing. Nothing. In fact, as close to the election as that is, there'll be various Democratic strategists who will be saying, wait a minute, do we really want to do that a month out from the election? People don't like seeing that kind of stuff. I mean, is there some reason why you don't want this guy to be the judge? Is he qualified? And if they're trying to make the argument that, oh, well, it's going to be overturn Roe versus Wade, people know that's not going to happen. Even the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, a Republican, has said, as far as he's concerned, it is closed case law. It's finished. Barring a great movement in the country, which would have you maybe 70-80% of the people demanding, then you might see it happen. But other than that, you're not going to see overturn of Roe versus Wade. What you might see is limitations on late-term abortions and funding and things and such. But you're not going to see an overturn of Roe versus Wade, and any Democrats who try to go out and make that hysterical argument are going to look stupid. They're going to look stupid. It will only take a couple professional commentators and a couple of hours of being interviewed to put that to rest. It's not going to fly. Moore and his idiot supporters will look stupid if they do this, and it will backfire on them. So go ahead and do it. It will yield nothing but possibly moving more Democrats who are sane into voting Republican. Tell you how far out of whack the left is. The mayor of Los Angeles, who's a hardcore leftist named Eric Garcetti, did a rally. He was thinking it was gonna be a love fest. Mr. Garcetti did a rally, and he supports abolishing ICE or reforming ICE or something. He's totally an open border sanctuary city guy, and so he's out there with all these leftists, and he's thinking that they're going to be throwing flowers at him and praising him. He's thinking it's going to be a love fest. Instead, he got booed completely off stage because he's not far left enough, and he's a white male. You're not allowed to be a white male and hold power in the Democratic Party now. You got to be Hispanic, a black, or a female, or gay, or trisexual, or God knows what. No room in the Democratic Party anymore for white males. Mr. Garcetti. So we are seeing the Trump effect all over the world. As you know, I watch international things very closely. I'm watching all that's going on, not just in Iran, but other things related to immigration. So a lot of these world leaders have been paying attention to how Trump's been playing his immigration thing here in the States. And they're learning. They are learning how to win on the immigration. And these European countries are learning, and you can see literally 5, 6 of them now taking almost exactly Trump's rhetoric on sealing the borders and controlling immigration. It's now found itself into the European theater of politics, and that's why George Soros came out and said, hey, Trump's winning, right? So now we have the leaders of Poland, Bulgaria, Italy, Austria, Greece, Hungary, and the Czech Republic all coming out now and saying, that's it, we're done. We want our borders closed. We want the borders closed. We want to imprison the illegals, and we want to deport the rest. That's happening right now in Poland, Bulgaria, Italy, Austria, Greece, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. The Trump effect is worldwide. And how do you know we're winning? Do you want absolute 100% confirmation that we are winning? Here it is. This Sunday morning, Chuck Todd was interviewing a Democrat, and he said, to this Democrat, Trump's winning, and you all in the Democratic Party are reeling. Trump is winning, and you are reeling. That came from Chuck Todd. When Chuck Todd tells you that we're winning We're definitely winning. Thanks so much for tuning in. See ya. Bye.